Welcome back to Calix Boxing 2.0. Hit that like button, hit the sub if you're not subbed. If you're over on X, hit that and you're stumbling across this, as most of you will be watching this from X, make sure to hit that, what do you call that? The repost button, and make sure to hit the follow button. Wheelchair Man John, appreciate you. What's up with you, man? Happy Friday. Happy Friday to everybody. And we got a sneaky good boxing weekend. A lot of fights. A lot of fights. So just for a better, and I'm gonna give you the betting perspective for this weekend, mostly on this show, and it's gonna be a fast-paced show. As you can see, I'm off site today. I am not on site. I am not in my normal office. I'm somewhere else, not in the back cave. So things are kind of rigged up right now. Not rigged up well. I'm barely holding together. I'll tell you that. I'm trying to put it together and stuff is falling apart. This show was supposed to start like 15 minutes ago. So it's just one of those things. We're going to get through it. And it's going to be a fast paced show because I really just wanted to highlight, get on record is what I was thinking going into this weekend. And just give more of my betting perspective on what some of the plays I'm gonna do this weekend, and some people one of my thoughts on Canelo versus Eubank Jr. So I'll give that later on if that fight does happen. Shout out Manis, shout out Chauncey Pearls, who got great news this week, yesterday, I think, that your nephew is cancer free. So great job over there, and God bless you and yours, Chauncey, and keep up the good fight. Ed Woodson sounds like Ryan Garcia. Ryan's falling apart for sure. Calix Espinoza, here we go. Right off the bat, I wanted this to be a peaceful show. I came here for the people, not home, but I said for the people. I'll still do a show. I'll still do a show for the people. And here comes Drew flying off the top rope right away. Drew's still mad that I had his mentions in shambles the other day. He's sending me a voicemail. You got my mentions in shambles over on Twitter. Look, man, I didn't put your mentions in shambles. You put your mentions in shambles with your behavior. Appreciate the 199 super chat, but this right here calling me, D-Style's doing it too. He's calling me Calix Espinoza. Calix Ellerby. Because I threw out the fact that, look, if a fighter's in a weight class and he has a belt and he wants to unify belts, then he should be allowed to do that. He should be allowed to do it. That's all I'm saying. There are weight classes for a reason, right? And look, nobody would like to see Bam versus Junto more than yours truly. I've wanted that fight for a while already. I've already said, if there's a guy 118 South that's going to beat Bam, it's Junto. If there's a guy around 118 and South that's going to beat Junto, it's Bam. That's the super fight, right? I'm not marinating. All I'm saying is you dudes throw out this duck. He's ducking him, and he's ducking him, and he's ducking him. It can't be a duck if they're in two different weight classes and a guy says, look, man, here's what I want to do. I want to unify my whole division. There's a fight this weekend between Ioka and Martinez, and it's a good fight. It's a toss-up fight, and it's 50-50 fight. It's a unification fight. So if one of them's going to consolidate two belts, unless there's a draw, I have one belt. How about we unify? And then after that, maybe I'll meet the other champion and become undisputed. Bam has seen the blueprint laid out by Canelo at 168. Bivol better be about to fight at 175 for undisputed. Usyk, cruiserweight and heavyweight. Bud 140, 147. He's seeing all the top fighters in the sport do the same thing. Unify all the belts within their division. Become undisputed. It's laying out the blueprint to become great, right? So how is it a duck if the guy says, I want to do the same and become undisputed in my own weight class? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'd rather see him do it, Drew. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'd rather see him do it. All I'm saying is if he wants to do it, there's plenty of time. There's plenty of time. He's 24. Junto's young. I'm all for young, undefeated champions fighting each other. I'm not against that either because I know y'all going to try to twist my words. All I'm saying is if one guy's in one weight class, the other guy's in another weight class, and they want to become undisputed within those weight classes, and I get it. Look, I could play the interview. Junto saying, I maybe have two more fights at 118, and then I got to move up because I'm struggling to make the weight. I get that. I get that. And we could squander this fight if Bam doesn't move up right away. But is Bam capable of moving up more weight classes? Yes. Yes. That fight is going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. You threw out the marinate word. LOL. But I'm calling for some bets this weekend. The salaciousness gets people going. He loves the chaos. He loves it. So do I. So do I. I love the chaos. All I'm saying is we need to respect our young champions. We need to respect the young fighters. Appreciate Drew. Appreciate Drew. $4.99 super chat, by the way. Stop protecting Bam. See what y'all are doing? They're doing it. They're doing it. They're starting it. Bam and Junto meeting up in a super fight in the future is as sure as the sun rising in the morning. I wonder how this is going to play out. And this will be my last thoughts on this before we move on. I wonder how it's going to play out. I tend to think when I hear Junto say, I got like two more fights at 118, I'm busting at the seams. I tend to think Inoue stays at 122. Inoue does not have to move up to 126, 130, 132.5 to fight Tank Davis in a catchweight. He doesn't have to do any of that. That's American fight fans who simply don't follow the best weight classes in boxing as far as action goes, right? And they simply don't know the names down there, and they can't comprehend the greatness that we're witnessing in these weight classes from guys like Inoue, from guys like Bam, from guys like Junto. They can't do it because they're short bus. They're short bus shorties. American boxing fans are short bus. They are not capable of having, as a whole in general, they're not capable of having intelligent boxing conversations. They're not capable of following 17 different weight classes. They're not capable of doing it. So they're not going to respect the greatness anyway. They just want to see Inoue lose. That's all that is. If Inoue does want to move up, go ahead for it. Go for greatness or whatever. But I'm just telling you, he stays at 122, which it looks like he can. Junto's going to come up there in 2025. And imagine Inoue versus Junto in the Tokyo Dome. Imagine that. Imagine Inoue, Junto, Tokyo Dome. Me and Drew are going out there for that. There's no doubt about that. I will be in the Tokyo Dome, right? My wife's going to be closely monitoring my behavior out there from afar. But I'll be in the Tokyo Dome witnessing greatness between Inoue and Junto. I tend to think that fight comes before Junto versus Bam or Inoue versus Bam. Bam's got work to do at 115, which I think he'll take care of. And we'll get there. We'll get there. Show patience. Patient. Be patient. Be patient. Right here. Chicano's throwing out some sly shade. He's running out of old dudes to fight. Oh man. Oh man, the Bam hate. I love my US, but damn, we have the most toxic entitled fan. I agree. Shout out to Spit Bucket Podcast. Don't matter if it ain't in Vegas. I think it's about time I check on this Junto dude. You need to. You need to. He's the real deal. He's the real deal. And Chocolatito's moving up to 118, fellas. He's going to move up to 118, and he's going to go out to Japan and fight for a title at 118. Watch that. Watch out for that. Chocolatito will add to his greatness as Gallo loses to Bam. I'm just saying. Since Chocolatito really won that trilogy, fellas. He really won that trilogy. He won that second fight. They robbed Chocolatito in that second fight, and I know I digress, just like they were trying to rob Bam against Gallo. He was up on the scorecard, a draw on a scorecard. Come on, I kid. Y'all know I love Gallo. So let's check out these betting odds. Abdullah Mason versus Luis Lebron. Let's start there. We're going to work our way from the bottom up all the way to Shakur, Ioka, etc. William Zepeda, Mexican Murder Hornet, is back. That's an 8-rounder. Abdullah Mason is moving up from 6 rounders to 8 rounders. And this is where Top Rank starts to show a little resistance. And how they do that is they put him in there with the vet and LeBron, who has never been knocked out. And they want to see if Abdullah Mason, how he does in rounds. And then if he can step it up into fifth gear and get this guy out of here and put that on his resume that he's the first to knock out this 11, 12, 13-year vet in LeBron. This is what Top Rank does, and this is why Top Rank is the best at building prospects. They show some resistance early on, moving up from 6 to 8 rounders against a vet, never been knocked out, all that stuff. He's a 35-1 favorite, so Abdullah Mason's going to win this fight. We all know that, but we want to see what happens when he goes rounds against a tough guy with the chin, and can he stop him? And that's one of my plays. I like, and I'm going to put this in a parlay, I like Abdullah Mason by stoppage minus 185 in this fight. He's a 35-1 favorite, but if you play the method, if you go method route and go Abdullah Mason stoppage, then you get this play at minus 185, and that's what I like as well. Joel Ariarte, I'm telling you, this is one of the best prospects in all of the sport. Keep your eye out on Ariarte. We interviewed him on D-Styles channel about a year and a half ago. This kid is a promising young prospect, promising young talent. He's also a 35-1 favorite. So, and there's no methods as far as the betting odds, so we're not even going to talk about that. Ariarte will win, just like Abdullah Mason, and I think they both look great in their fights. Danny Jacobs versus Shane Mosley Jr., close to a toss-up fight. Shane Mosley Jr., slight betting favorite at minus 122. Danny Jacobs is slight underdog at plus 100. Danny Jacobs is coming off of a 2.5-year layoff, and he's coming off the loss to John Ryder. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this fight. Mosley Jr. is more active. He fought 3 times in 2023, and in these toss-up fights, I always lean towards activity. I think Mosley Jr. I like him. I like his activity going into this fight. But the play here, I think, is the fight go the distance and to tie it into a parlay. And if you want to play live betting odds in this fight, there's a live betting odds fight. But I think the safe bet here is for the fight to go the distance minus 250. And if you want to parlay that with an Abdullah Mason minus 185 and some other plays, but the fight to go the distance minus 250, this is a 10-rounder, fellas, not a 12-rounder, it's a 10-rounder. Shane Mosley Jr., not a big puncher. Danny Jacobs has passed it. I think this fight goes the distance. I think that's a safe play at minus 250. This fight going the distance. Keyshawn Davis versus Miguel Medueno. Keyshawn Davis is a 20-1 favorite, minus 2,000. Will the fight go the distance? Yes, plus 108. I think this is another fight. I'm staying away from this one. I just don't trust Keyshawn Davis yet. I trust him to win this fight, but I don't trust him to play a method here to get a stoppage. I think this is a 10-rounder, so I don't trust him yet to play a method. I'm not as big of a believer in Keyshawn Davis as everybody else. I'm just not. I think he's a good fighter, promising talent, but I don't think he's a guy who's going to be a world beater down the line. I just don't. I think he's a good fighter. And that's where I'm at with it until he proves otherwise. I think he's a good fighter. So I just don't trust him to step on the gas here and get the stoppage. He may do it. I'm just staying away. I'm staying away on this one. I don't see any value plays here. Shock Foster versus Robson Conceição. Love this fight. Love this fight, fellas. And this is one where, look, Shock Foster continues to be match tough. Continues to be match tough. And let me send this. I got to send a text real quick. Okay. He continues to be match tough, and he's getting it through the mud. Shock Foster is becoming flying under the radar, becoming one of the quiet, feel-good stories in the sport. He's a guy who was not supposed to win the title against Ray Vargas. He was like a 3-1 underdog. Lars beat Eduardo Hernandez in a fight that was set up for him to lose as the champion. Think about that for a second. He's the champion. He couldn't get the fights that he wanted. He was set up to lose going to Mexico against Eduardo Rocky Hernandez. Was down on the scorecards. Small ring that was set up for him to be in a firefight. And he's quietly becoming an action fighter. He was known as a boxer, but he's becoming an action fighter. He was a guy who was in trouble with the law, put together this long winning streak, slowly and quietly climbed his way up the rankings, and then upsets Ray Vargas. Um, Toss-up fight against Rocky Hernandez, goes to Mexico, everything set up against him, gets a 12th round stoppage in a fight that if it went to scorecards, he was going to lose. Abraham Nova, a split decision, another close fight where he said he had trouble making weight. And that's one thing to look at in this fight, right? Is he still having trouble making weight? Has he gotten that under control? Can he still make 130 comfortably? These are the things you look out for in these fights, in these tough fights, because Shaq has shown he can win close fights. Shaq has shown that he has that clutch gene late in fights to pull things out, and he's going to need that against a Conceição who is not a big puncher, but he's an awkward fighter. And another guy who has surprisingly been in some close fights. I mean, some exciting fights. Surprisingly. The never that they fight, most people feel he won that fight. Close fight, a majority draw. Shakur Stevenson, he fought well in a decision loss in that fight, but he's been in some more exciting fights as of recently. Awkward style, and this could be trouble for Shaq Foster. Another fight that I'm staying away from going in, but I'll be watching the live betting odds closely. As the rounds go on, make sure that you are watching the live betting odds. And if Shaq Foster gets down early and the odds flip, that may be your trigger to jump on Shaq Foster then, because what do we say? Shaq Foster comes on late in fights. But Conceição, if you do like him going into this fight, what I would suggest you do is maximize your value play and go to Conceição by decision plus 290, because Conceição is not going to knock out Shaq Foster. He's not a puncher, and he's more of a boxer, and Shaq Foster's a tough fighter. He's not going to get knocked out. So if you do like Conceição, bet Conceição decision plus 290. That would be your value play. I was very close to jumping on that, but something tells me Shaq Foster will continue this streak of close wins, close decision wins, and he may get out by the skin of his teeth in this fight. But this is a tough one. As soon as it was announced, I was like, man, they just do not give Shaq Foster soft touches. He does not get soft. This guy gets it through the mud. And another thing to look out for is, can he make 130 comfortably? That's another thing. Will he be weight drained in this fight? But the fight to go the distance is minus 310. If you want to tie that into a parlay, you can do it, because this fight will go the distance. So that's what I'll play as far as this fight going in, is I will tie the distance minus 310 into a parlay. The parlay may look something like that decision, that going to decision, Shane Mosley fight going to decision, and Abdullah Mason stoppage minus 185. And that parlay will get you into plus territory. So that's another thing to look out for. But Shaq Foster, Conceição, that's a sleeper fight, fellas. Shaq Foster's on upset alert. Be careful there. William Zepeda, the Mexican murder hornet, the most exciting fighter in the sport, the best action fighter in the sport, is back against Giovanni Cabrera. Cabrera is known from the boxing public of staking it out against Isaac Cruz and possibly winning a decision. Isaac Cruz possibly got a gift in that fight. So what's the difference, though? And why is that not going to happen tomorrow night? First of all, Zepeda's a minus 1450 favorite, plus 890 Cabrera. Zepeda KO is minus 230, and once again, I'm tying that into a parlay. Or I may even bet that straight up, but I like Zepeda KO in this fight. I trust Zepeda. They've got him going again. Golden Boy's got him active now. A little more active. Not as active still as he should be, but more active. And this is an important fight for Zepeda, because he becomes the mandatory for all 4 belts, and then he can pick. He can pick which one he wants. You want Tank, you want Loma. You may have to wait for them to fight each other, Baranchik. But he's the mandatory for all 4 belts at this point. He's positioned himself well at 135 over time. And to me, you keep fighting the guy. You just keep him active quarterly. Why? Because people need to see this guy. He is an action fighter. They need to see this guy. And you need to continue to build this audience. There was a disconnect with the market for whatever reason, because one, this guy's Mexican. Two, this guy throws over 100 punches per round. He should be a star. Should be a star. So I want to see him continue to grow this audience. The the venues continue to get bigger. The live gates continue to get bigger. And whether people come to the table or not at the time, you just continue to put pressure on them right now to eventually come to the table. A la Gennady Golovkin at 160. Eventually, those guys had to come to the table. Eventually, Canelo becomes millennial. He gets the fight. Danny Jacobs. Eventually, guys had to come to the table because Golovkin's putting pressure on anybody who is in the middleweight rankings. And that's what you got to do if you're Zepeda. It's an easy blueprint. Fight the top guy available. Continue to mow them down until the top fighters have to come to the table. And if Shakur Stevenson offers you another fight for a title, you take it. Cross promotion fight, you just do it. Or if Shakur, wherever Shakur goes, if he offers the fight again, you take it. If you lose the fight, it doesn't matter because you're an action star. Action stars, it doesn't matter if they lose one fight, 5 fights, 7 fights. People will continue to show up because the value you're providing is your action. You're an entertaining fighter. And if you become this great pound for pound fighter, then that's icing on the cake. So be aggressive with this guy's career. Fight him often and fight him with the top opposition available. It's simple. This is a rocket science. But as far as the fight, Giovanni Cabrera is not going to be able to stink out William Zepeda the way he did Isaac Cruz. And how do I know this? One, Zepeda is a naturally bigger fighter than Isaac Cruz, who's 4'11", and has no neck. The little neck he has, he wears a collar like he's a real life pit bull. We talked about that, right? But Zepeda is a real fighter at lightweight, tough physical fighter. Isaac Cruz was smaller, T-Rex arms. And I'm not saying that to disrespect Isaac Cruz. I'm just saying like it's similar in that it's pressure, but it's a different type of pressure. Emmanuel Stewart would talk about the different type of pressure from bigger, taller fighters. Zepeda brings that. Zepeda's he's a more intelligent fighter than Isaac Cruz too. And D-Style's not going to like any of his stuff. Zepeda's just a better fighter all around than Isaac Cruz. I don't say that to disrespect Isaac Cruz. I'm just saying Zepeda is just an all around better fighter than Isaac Cruz. He applies better pressure. Cabrera is not going to be able to just clinch him to death and get to a decision like he did against Isaac Cruz. Zepeda is going to overwhelm him like he does everybody else. And Zepeda is going to win this fight by stoppage. I like Zepeda KO minus 230 in this fight. And once again, that may be something I tie into a parlay. If you like Zepeda late, you give Cabrera credit of being able to stink things out. You can get Zepeda 7 through 12 at plus 145. So you can do that. Shakur versus Artem Herchadurban. To me, this is a fight that I don't need to see live. Shakur has become a DVR fighter to me. And people would say he's a special talent. He is a special talent. I get that. But you have to bring something else to the table than just being a special fighter. And just being a special talent. I talked about this last Saturday. Bam is must-see TV. Bam is you put the kids to sleep, tell your wife to go in the other room, leave me alone. Bam's on. And that's due to the high degree of difficulty he fights with, keeping his hands free, not stinking out fights, not taking the easy road, and understanding that it's in his nature, but understanding that I have to connect with the audience. I have to provide entertainment. That's what they're here for. They're here to see us fight. And naturally in the lower weight classes, you get that more, right? Guys keeping their hands free and it resembles more of a sport, higher degree of difficulty of fighting. The issue with Shakur is Nakathila, De Los Santos. Injury or not, Shakur has shown that if he can stink out a fight and go in third gear and keep his O, he'll do it. He's not worried about the fans who show up. He's not worried about the fans at home that are tuning in. And he said it. You guys just don't understand the art that I'm putting on. It's like that artist, right? You see them and they just throw stuff at the canvas and it's lazy art. And they're just going to tell you, like, if you don't like it, I've been to these art galleries. They have them up in New Orleans. And it's like, I go on these art galleries to be nice to some people who invite me. And I'm looking at the art and I'm like, I quietly tell the people I come with, like, that's it. That's the art. That's art. That's art. It's like a green canvas and they like super glue a banana on it. It's like, that's it. That's the art. So you just don't understand. You don't understand what that is. If the artist has to explain the art to you, to me, I should be able to see the art and know that's great art. That is phenomenal. And I should instinctively know what it is that I'm looking at. When I watch Shakur fight, it's like, yeah, I get it, man. He's talented. He's super talented. That guy is its top 10. I've said it for a couple, like 2-3 years now. Like, this guy should be the pound for pound king at some point down the line. He's that talented. But you got to do something else, bro. Like, you can't Usain Bolt it. You can't just run around the ring. You can't run a marathon around the ring for 12 rounds and expect us to show up out of the goodness of our heart. And then shame us after that. We just don't appreciate the art of throwing one or two punches and clinching. One or two punches and clinching. One or two punches and clinching. I get it, man. The plus minus is the highest in the sport. This guy is a great defensive fighter. He's a genius. But you have to fight with a higher degree of difficulty if you want people to tune in. You have to keep your hands free. You have to go for knockouts if they present themselves. If the openings are there like they were against Nakathila, for the love of God, man, I watched this dude 120 to 108 Nakathila. The guy has one punch, Nakathila. One-handed fighter, one punch. And you see it from a mile away. And this dude had opening after opening after opening and never stepped on it. And then he does it again against De Los Santos and starts whining about he had an injury and then starts shaming anybody who doesn't like the fight and doesn't appreciate the art of what he's doing. I'm sorry. Sorry, dude. You got to try to knock somebody out. Here's the good news. Shakur Stevenson is going into free agency. Shakur Stevenson officially becomes a free agent after this fight. Shakur Stevenson is already, if you listen, already in negotiations with other promoters with free agency, right? So with that, it's almost like the NBA player who is in a contract year, the NFL player who's in a contract year, and they're late in the season. You know they're going to show out because they're in a contract year. If you're in the first year of your a 5-year contract, then these guys may lay up a little bit. But if you're in the last couple games of your contract, you're in a contract year, you're going to show out. You're at least going to try to. And I think that's what we have tomorrow with Shakur. I think we have a contract year fight. I think we have a show out fight. So if you want to see what Shakur looks like when he's aggressive, I think tomorrow night is your opportunity. I think if you want to see what Shakur looks like if he opens up a little bit, I think tomorrow night is your opportunity. I could be dead wrong about this because, once again, this is Shakur. This is Shakur we're talking about. Shakur, if he has the opportunity, that's his nature, right? That's what it's been. That's the track record is. If he has the opportunity to just lay up, put it in third gear, much like Bivol, right, and put everybody to sleep, he'll do it. But we got money on the line. And what do we know about these guys? What do we know about the young American fighters? If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. I can't feed my kid's legacy, right? They're still attached to that Mayweather era, protecting the O. We're not here to please the fans. We're here to rob the bank. Shakur is of that ilk still, right? So the money may tell him here, the bag may tell him here is we got to show out. This is a contract year fight. We got to show out. So I think that's what we'll see. He's a 25-1 favorite, for the love of God, fellas. And this Artem Herch guy, Let me tell you about him. Artem is a guy that, because of his attachment to Tank, he gets overvalued. And how is he attached to Tank? Well, he fought Frank Martin, and Frank Martin fought Tank. So anything in that orbit of Tank has to be built up to make Tank look greater. That's how the American market works. That's how the American boxing fans work. That's how everything triangle theory works for Tank beautifully. He doesn't have to fight the fights. We've been over that, right? Is Frank Martin won rounds against Tank, right? So it automatically bumps him up in the rankings. And they had to build Frank up before the fight because he's fighting Tank as a credible opponent, even though he's not. So what did they have to do? They had to say, this fight that happened right before, you thought he looked bad in that fight, but actually what happened is Artem Herder was actually a great fighter that was flying under the radar, and Frank dug deep in that fight. And Frank knocked him down in the 12th round and dug deep. When in reality, Artem Herder is an average fighter, and so is Frank. And Frank won by the skin of his teeth, right? And Artem Herder was he was hurt late in that fight. So I say if Frank hurts Artem in that fight, and it doesn't always work out this way, but if Shakur steps on it in a contract year fight, if Shakur steps on it, fellas, I think he gets Artem out of there. Shakur's a 25-1 favorite, but Shakur stoppage, I got it at minus 135. You can get Shakur stoppage at minus 145 right now. And I think that's the play. I put $100 on it. I like that play. And I don't even know if I'll be home for this fight tomorrow night. And with other fights on, I don't know if I'll tune in to Shakur. Like I said, he's turned into a DVR fighter for me. I'll catch it when I catch it. But I'm telling you this, man. If he doesn't get a stoppage against Artem, I'll be throwing soft objects at the TV if I'm home. Because, dude, this is a layup for you. Get the stoppage here. If you're this special, step on it and get the stoppage. Start entertaining people. And as American boxing fans, can we please stop treating these dudes like they're so fragile? Can we still please stop with the low expectations? The expectations going into this fight, 25-1 favorite. If you're this special, you need to get, if you want to get on a top 10 pound for pound list, dude, these are the fights you got to get a stoppage. And I don't want to hear that, not every fight, guys aren't going to look good every fight. If the dude's fighting twice per year and one of them is Artem Herder, you got to get the stoppage. You got to get the stoppage. You're in a contract year. You got to get the stoppage, bro. I don't want to hear it. And if he doesn't get the stoppage here, and even though it's only $100, if he costs me the $100, he's dead to me. He's dead. He's dead to me. He's dead to me. You don't get the stoppage here, Shakur. You're dead to me. Dead. Absolutely dead. You become DVR fighter to non-existent. Non-existent. Unacceptable. So get the stoppage is what we're saying. Get the stoppage. And I do think, and I could regret this instantly, and I could still take it back. The cash out is still sitting there for me at $100. I can get all my money back, cash it out. But something tells me he'll get the stoppage. That's what my instincts tell me. But I instantly regretted it as soon as I placed that bet. Because I'm like, this is Shakur. I'm betting Shakur stoppage? What am I doing? As soon as I did it, I said it. What did I just do? I just bet Shakur stoppage? But something just tells me that he's going to get a stoppage. Zepeda 4-6 or 7-9. And that's what I just talked about. This is the thing, Drew. I trust Zepeda. I trust him. Zepeda, he's the beautiful Mexican murder hornet. The guy is nothing. The guy can do no wrong to me. Those 100 punches per round. Golden Boy is finally starting to promote this guy correctly. The venues will get bigger. The fights will get bigger as time goes on. Eventually, the fights will come, right? Giovanni Cabrera, people like D-Style, who thinks Cruz beats William Zepeda, and he's dead wrong about that, by the way. William Zepeda will make Isaac Cruz his son. He'll make him his little 4'11" fake pit bull son, right? He'll treat him like a pit bull at home. Go fetch, whatever. Isaac Cruz will become William Zepeda's son. William Zepeda will son Isaac Cruz if they ever fought against each other. William Zepeda will absolutely destroy. William Zepeda will knock Isaac Cruz's head off of that little tiny neck, right? He will punch down on him, all 4'11" of them, right? He'll rip the leash off of him. He will make Pitbull Cruz his son. Absolutely. Giovanni Cabrera can stink out an Isaac Cruz because Isaac Cruz is very limited. They try to build him up once again. He fought Tank, right? So he's got to be this otherworldly great pressure fighter, right? They feed him a belt at 140, right? They just give it to him because they have to. Cabrera can stink out Isaac Cruz. He can't stink out William Zepeda. He can't stink him out. Can't. I trust William Zepeda. And that's what I said earlier. If you like Zepeda KO, minus 230, and you can tie that into a parlay. Or if you think Cabrera can stink it out long enough, what you can do is go Zepeda 7 through 12 at plus 145. Group round betting. Just go second half of the fight, 7 through 12, William Zepeda stoppage at plus 145. You could do that and get into plus money. I like that Shakur stoppage, though. I never thought I would say those words. Minus 145. I just think these dudes are... And maybe Shakur is in negotiations already, and he already feels like he's got his bag and he doesn't have to show out. I don't know, but I just think after his last performance... and looking as terrible as he looked and getting as much criticism as he got, plus him being a free agent after this fight, he's going to want to show out. And I think Artem could get stopped. And I think Shakur can stop him. It's not... Look, Shakur is not a guy who's going to knock you out, but he's a guy who can make you look so terrible that your corner just says, we're done. We're done here. I don't need to see it anymore. We're done. He's a guy who can make you look so bad if he steps on it and you're not landing any punches that the referee says, look, we've just seen you get hit enough. 9th round, we've seen you get hit enough. You're already down 8 rounds to 0. We're done here. And that's the type of stoppage I'm looking at here. Calix is my bookie minus 10% VIG, and that's fair. Let's go up to 20%. We're going to go up to 20% because for whatever reason, you guys can't gamble in California. What the hell's going on out there? If you're in a state where you can't gamble, what's wrong with your state? What are y'all doing? You should be able to get on your phone and just start gambling. What is this? It's 2024. Ioka, lastly, Ioka versus Fernando Martinez. Another tricky trap fight. Unification fight, WBA, IBF. I'm telling y'all right now, fellas, Ioka could lose this fight. And why could Ioka lose this fight? Because Martinez, if you look at the fight within Cajas, where he won the belt, and once again, they do this thing where they say this guy's the longest reigning champion, and Errol Spitz, it'll be like however many years, right? And the guy fought like 4 times. He's got like 1 defense, right? And it's similar with Martinez, if we're being fair. 13-month layoff. He's a 2-year and 4-month belt holder, I believe. 1 defense in those 2+ years. 1 defense. But if you look at the Cajas fight where he was a 5-1 underdog and went into that fight, what did he do? He went in there and he took the fight to Cajas. He threw over 1,000 punches, almost 1,100 punches in the fight. So he's averaging around 90 punches per round. So expect a similar effort here against Ioka going into the belly of the beast. 32 years old, so he's not much younger. All right. Yeah, he's not much younger than Ioka, who's 35. Only 16 fights. He's not a puncher. 9 knockouts in 16 fights. And he doesn't have the title experience, title fighting experience that Ioka does. Ioka's been in title fights for what, like a decade? He's a 15-year pro, but that's the thing. He's a 15-year pro, fellas. Eventually, 35 years old, 15-year pro, so many title fights. You're in title fights with Josh Franco, Nietes. This guy's in title fight after title fight. Kosei Tanaka, he's been in fights. Eventually, you fall off of a cliff. So those are the things I'm looking at. If he's in there with an active fighter, can Martinez go in there and steal rounds against him and win rounds against him? The reason I still edge Ioka is the scorecards in Japan could go towards him. Minus 144 favorite, plus 118 from Martinez. And I think that's about right. Slight edge to Ioka, but him losing this fight would not be surprising to me. He's still a top 10 pound for pound fighter for me, but it's close. It's close at 35 years old. So this is a trap fight, and it's another fight where I just say lay back and play the live betting odds. Play the live betting odds. I don't feel confident enough in either fighter. If you like the upset here, you can get Martinez at plus money. And what I would suggest you do is maximize your value. And I don't know what the decision play is, but maximize your value and get a decision play because he's not going to stop Ioka, I don't believe. Babbitt versus Fisher not going 12. That's another fight. There's a lot of fights to bet on this weekend. So I just gave you the betting odds, the value plays. Tie them in however you want to tie them in. Make sure you hedge them. But I just gave you some things that I see as value. Tie them in however you want to tie them in. You want to throw together a parlay. You want to bet single fights like I did with Shakur Stevenson stoppage. Hedge it with something that you're more confident in. But I really like, just to recap this, I like Abdullah Mason stoppage minus 185. I think Abdullah Mason, it's just one of those fights where Top Rank starts to start to give him a little resistance, right? 8-round fight against a guy who's never been stopped. Let's see what he can do go rounds. But I think Abdullah Mason steps on it and gets the stoppage. Live betting odds, or no, I'll tell you this. Fight go the distance. That's another play. Fight go the distance for Shane Mosley Jr., Danny Jacobs. Shane Mosley Jr. is not a puncher. Danny Jacobs, 2.5-year layoff since the John Ryder loss. I think that's going, and it's a 10-round fight. I think that's going the distance at minus 250. That's another value play, I believe. What was it? Shock Foster versus Robson Conceição. Fight goes the distance, minus 310. Tie that into a parlay. Minus 310. Foster versus Conceição is going the distance. It's going the distance. And look for the live betting odds in that fight. Williams Zepeda, stoppage, minus 230 against Cabrera. We talked about, I don't think Cabrera can stink him out. Shakur stoppage, you can get it at minus 145 now. I got it at minus 135. May end up regretting it and being pissed off with Shakur Stevenson for the rest of my life. He's dead to me if he doesn't get a stoppage here, fellas. That's where I'm at. If Shakur Stevenson does not get a stoppage in this fight, he is dead to me. Dead. He's become a DVR fighter. If he doesn't get the stoppage, he's dead to me. Dead to me. Doesn't exist. And Ioka versus Fernando Martinez. I didn't see. Let me see real quick. Ioka points is plus 115, but once again, I'm staying away from that. I want to see what the fight goes distance play is. Let's see real quick. Fight goes the distance. Ioka. Let's see. Fight goes the distance is there's no value there. Ioka versus Martinez, fight goes the distance is minus 400. So I prefer live betting odds in that fight. If Ioka comes out strong, fellas, in that fight, the live betting odds will go up, right? But with the scorecards likely in his favor in Japan, I think that would be a safe play early in the fight if it looks like Ioka's looking good in the first 2 or 3 rounds. So that's where we are. That's the value plays. I gave you 5 or 6 of them. Tie them in however you want, hedge them however you want, but I think that's the value going into tomorrow in a sneaky good boxing weekend. This is a sneaky good boxing weekend. Um, and appreciate the super chats, Drew. Shout out Nando. Let's see. I would say 12 rounds with Shakur. I respect Artem. Okay. Shockey Foster doesn't get enough props. I agree with you. I agree. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. And yeah, y'all smash the likes for me. It's easy for y'all to smash the likes. I don't have the vertical here. You don't have to go find it. Just hit the X, smash the like, and go right back to it. Zepeda will hit Cabrera with the right hook from hell. He's gonna get to him. He's gonna get to Cabrera. I strongly believe that. So the last topic, Canelo versus Eubank Jr. is the one being rumored now. One of the latest rumors. And what did I tell y'all after I told y'all this after I told y'all this after Canelo's last fight is the thing about Canelo, and it's 2 to 3 fight deals, and then he's a free agent again, and then you get these wild rumors, right? And it's always the wild rumors, and then it's we're already on like the 5th fighter that it could be, and now Eubank Jr. is the presumptive leader of the Canelo sweepstakes in the next fight. What I always tell you is these things change all the time when it comes to Canelo. Canelo's news cycle moves fast, and what happens in the Canelo news cycle all the time is they'll announce that Canelo is gonna fight. What was the one that made me laugh last year? Who is he? The dude broke the news that Canelo. Oh, Carlos Adames. Canelo's gonna fight Carlos Adames, and then everybody loses their minds. There's just heads exploding everywhere, like it's just exploding like dynamite. It's just exploding like the fireworks last night in my neighborhood. My neighborhood sounded like Beirut. Dudes just love to blow stuff up in my neighborhood on 4th of July and New Year's Eve. And every time Canelo is in the news, every time a possible opponent is thrown out, dudes just absolutely lose their minds. Heads just explode. I can't believe he's going to fight Carlos Adames. What a bum. Oh my God, he's going to fight Carlos. And I'm like, he's not going to fight Carlos Adames. Who would believe that he's going to fight Carlos Adames? A dude with like 12 followers is breaking his news. He's not going to fight Carlos Adames, but the whole timeline is just losing their minds that he's going to fight Carlos Adames. Look, he could fight Eubank Jr. It's a fight that, okay, it's better than Berlanga, right? We would agree that's better than Berlanga. But I would offer some advice to Canelo's team. Not that he would need it, and not that he would accept it from a dude with a YouTube channel. I'm sure they know what they're doing, right? But what I would suggest is there are terms in which fights like this are acceptable, and there are terms in which they are highly unacceptable. And you got to put it in perspective. So what would make Canelo versus, let's just do this exercise. Let's pretend that this rumor is true, right? And it's a big assumption to make, but let's assume it's true. What would make Canelo versus Eubank Jr. acceptable? And there are 3 terms in which it would be acceptable. One, if Canelo comes out and announces that he's fighting Eubank Jr., the first thing he needs to do is he needs to say something is coming right behind it and something big is coming right behind it. He can't do the thing where he says, we're just going to fight Eubank Jr. We can't look past Eubank Jr. No, we can't do that. We can't do that. It's the same thing we said with Berlanga. If you're fighting Berlanga, you can't say Mexico versus Puerto Rico and this great right. No. You can't say we're not looking past Berlanga as a tough opponent. The market is not dumb. We know he's not a tough opponent. All right. Eubank Jr. is a tougher opponent. It's not an easy fight, but this is where we have to accept the fact that dudes always they're comparing Canelo to Canelo, all right, not to other fighters. And with being the face of boxing comes with great rewards, but it also comes with great responsibility. So those just aren't going to accept Eubank Jr. at face value, and I don't blame them with other fights on the table. So what you need to do is say something's coming right behind it and say what it is. You can't say Eubank Jr. and we can't look past. No, no, no. You got to say Eubank Jr. and we got Bud Crawford right behind it. It's Riyadh season. Let's go. We in Riyadh season now. We getting the Saudi bag, whatever it is. If that's what it is, you say it and you say we got Bud right after it if we win this fight. And you got to run the risk of looking past an opponent. That's what you got to do. With being the face of boxing, which he is, there is no debate about that. He is the face of boxing, clearly. Still, even though he's losing his hold on the market, and you see it in the numbers, he's still built up that much of a margin, that much of a gap from the field that he's still the face of boxing. So with that comes great responsibility, and you have to run the risk of looking past Eubank Jr. and saying, announcing to the public that we're fighting Bud 3 months later, whatever it is. 3 months later, this is a tune-up for Bud. You got to do it if you want this fight. Second term is it can't be pay-per-view. It can't be pay-per-view. You can't put Berlanga. You can't put Eubank Jr. You can't put Maul on pay-per-view. You can't do it. You can't put it on pay-per-view. That has to be part of the subscription of wherever you go. It can't be pay-per-view. That's what tune-up fights look like. It's what Oscar did with Stevie Forbes, right? In between Mayweather Pacquiao. I'm giving back to the public here. Not every fight is a pay-per-view. Not every fight is a $40 million extravaganza. And even if it is, we got to figure out a way to make this not free because it's part of the subscription, but let's just call it free. It's got to be free to the public. Third term is the fight has to be where it makes sense. And I know fighters, look, I understand. You want to save taxes. You want to fight in Nevada. You want to fight in Texas. You want to fight in Florida. I understand that completely. Believe me. Believe me. I want to go where the taxes aren't. Believe me. I speak from experience. They're robbing people blind out here. But you got to go where the fight makes sense if it's this type of fight. So if it's Berlanga, it's got to be in New York. That's where that fight makes sense. And if it's Eubank Jr., it's got to be in the UK. You got to barnstorm. They call it barnstorming. This type of fight, you got to barnstorm. You got to go to the public where the fight makes sense. That's what you got to do. You can't put these fights in Vegas. You just can't. If it's Berlanga, Puerto Rico versus Mexico, and that's how you're promoting it, you go to New York. You put it free of charge to the public, not a pay-per-view, right? And if it's Eubank Jr., you go out to the UK. And watch what happens if you do that. Watch, you're going to have 80,000 people in a soccer stadium. It's going to blow people's minds. And the Benavidez super fans, right, are going to have to sit on the side and watch this. And they're going to lose their minds as they watch it. They're going to see this dude fight in a soccer stadium full of people in the UK, people adulating all over him, pause. And they're going to see the adulation. They're going to see the level of respect that he gets universally, even for a Eubank Jr. fight. If you go where the fights make sense, that's what's going to happen. And if you give back to the public here for this type of fight, that's what's going to happen. And then they're going to have to watch him fight Bud next. If they do this correctly, Bud next. And that be a big fight. And that's what. But those are the terms in which this is acceptable. And that's all I'll say, because I don't want to go deep into this because there's nothing to talk about. It's just a rumor. It's just a dude breaking a rumor, and they put out these feelers, right, to see how the public reacts to it. Well, this is how the public should react to it, I feel. Is if you want to do that, these are the 3 terms in which this is acceptable. And then we move on. And I talked about this with Benavidez, with D-Style yesterday. I'll just say how I feel personally. Is I like Canelo Benavidez. I want to see that fight. I want to see weight class business taken care of. I want to see Bud stay at 154. I want to see all that, right? But at the same time, there's that part of me that something is off about the Benavidez stuff, in that he's not, to me, just personally, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, that to me, he's not this guy they built up. He's just not that guy. And that's what's frustrating to me is, like, Canelo just go fight the fight and go fight that guy, because he's not what they're building him up to be. Or maybe he is and I'm wrong. I just watched Benavidez fight, and they're trying to build him up to what Bam is. And I'm watching Benavidez fight Plant, and I'm watching him fight Vodzik with a silent G, and I'm like, this is it. This is it. It's once again like going to the art gallery, and they're building up the art gallery. And they're like, man, wait till you see this art. Wait till you see this great art. And you get there and you're like, that's it. This is it. Have you guys never seen an art gallery before? Like, this is it. It's like it's like a square, and it's just green. Or it's like some stick figures, or it's like a banana glued to the canvas. And this is it. That's how I feel when I watch Benavidez fight, and that's why this whole thing is becoming frustrating to me, because I'm just like, I'm tired of the discussions. Just let's just get this over with. Let's get out of here. Let's get this fight on. This is what the public wants to see. Give it to them. And Benavidez does present a stylistic problem for Canelo. Canelo presents a stylistic problem for Benavidez. So that, to me, is the intrigue behind the fight. It's not that Benavidez is this great fighter, because you don't have to be a great fighter to win a fight against another great fighter. You maybe you bring something stylistically to the table. This is Jermaine Taylor thing, right? We look back at it, Jermaine Taylor and his legacy, and we're like, how did he beat Bernard Hopkins? How did he beat Bernard Hopkins twice, especially 3 years into his career? It's just he had a style that was a problem for Bernard Hopkins, and that's how I feel about Benavidez. But the problem with guys like that is they move on after those fights, and they can't put together a sustainable run after that, because I think Benavidez's whole aura is 168. His whole aura is being naturally bigger than everybody in the weight class, and having this special talent to drain himself down to 168 and then rehydrate himself back up to 200 and not lose much as far as um, combination punching, pressure fighting. And I think when he moves up to 175, he's going to lose a lot of that aura. And I don't think he's going to be able to put something together sustainable. The other part of this is dudes want badly to present a boogeyman into the Canelo equation. I would argue that Canelo hasn't had any real peers post Golovkin. He just hasn't had any real peers. They tried to build up Maul. They tried to build up Boo Boo. They tried to build up Plant. They tried to build up Billy Joe Saunders. Because I remember this stuff, fellas. We're not gonna act stupid here. Dudes want to pretend like this stuff didn't happen. I remember when Canelo was at middleweight, and they were saying he will never go up to super middleweight, because look at the big movers at 168. Look at the big movers at super middleweight. Look at Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant's invited to the cookout. Caleb Plant, look at that lateral movement. He's white chocolate, right? And Canelo will never be able to catch up with that lateral movement, and Plant would outbox him. Same thing with Billy Joe Saunders. But what happens is Caleb Plant gets destroyed, gets disinvited from the cookout. Billy Joe Saunders becomes Billy Ho Saunders, right? He gets his face broken. And we just forget that those narratives were there. And I would argue that these peers that have been built up for Canelo at 168 post Golovkin are just not really peers. They're just the dudes that were being built up, that they had this. We've talked, you know, the guy that shows up at these fights with the signs always disparaging Canelo, and he has the right to do that, right? But his signs always change. He becomes a fan. He's a fan of Golovkin. Now he's a fan of Benavidez, right? It changes from opponent to opponent, depending on who they feel is the biggest threat to Canelo. And these guys feel like they're getting these fan bases, but all they're getting is Canelo haters who are gravitating to them towards them temporarily. Benavidez is a threat. He's a legitimate threat, right? I got to give him that. So in other words, this is the first peer, like legitimate peer to Canelo post Golovkin. But the frustrating part is, and it almost becomes like the boy who cried wolf, is they built all these guys up as Canelo slayers post Golovkin, and none of them were. And now Benavidez is the next one. And I look at it and I'm watching them fight, and it feels like it's being forced on me as a consumer. That's how I feel. I've been trying to put this together in my head, like what's not making sense to me here. And the more it goes on, the more we talked about how Canelo's in this territory now, right? Where Canelo throughout his career has fought the fights. Canelo throughout his career, he's given the fans what they want. He's given them entertainment value, and he's built up his base organically. And being that the media didn't do it, the media didn't build up Canelo. He's not a hype job, despite what his detractors will tell you. So only Canelo can detach himself from his base. We're getting at that point now, fellas, and you got to be honest about this, where Canelo's starting to flirt with losing a larger part of that base, because I would argue that he's temporarily losing some of his base. Temporarily. I think that's what's happening if I'm reading the numbers right. Because I thought Canelo versus Munguia was going to do bigger numbers, much bigger numbers than it did. So what's that saying? It's the saying that Canelo's haters, it's saying that Canelo's haters are wrong. Canelo's haters have been saying that we're mind-numb zombies who will support anything Canelo does, and we're all over his balls, whatever they say, right? But what the market, what the numbers are telling you is there is a detachment there. There were, the past couple of fights, there was part of the public that have been supporting Canelo that says, I'm going to just sit this one out. I'm going to sit this one out. I think that's what they're saying is, I'm going to sit this one out temporarily, and if you give me the Bud or Benavidez fight, then we'll show up, right? And that's why you got to be careful here if you're Canelo. I understand that he's out there publicly negotiating with, I think, Turki Al-Sheikh. And Turki Al-Sheikh is publicly negotiating with him. I think that's what happened, fellas. It was right under our nose. Canelo says, all Benavidez brings to the table is 20, 25 pounds, whatever he said. I need 200 million, right? And then Bud is too small for me. I don't get anything out of this fight. I think that's him publicly negotiating with the guy who owns the bag. And Turki Al-Sheikh publicly negotiated back with Ariel Helwani, and he said, I want the Bud fight. I'd rather the Bud fight over the Benavidez fight. That's what Turki Al-Sheikh is saying back to Canelo, and that's why I think that Canelo versus Bud will be the fight that happens early 2020, 2025. But Canelo, in the meantime, needs to be careful here, because you're starting to see that pushback. And right now it's temporary, but it can become permanent if he continues to walk this thing and say, and the messaging isn't correct, and saying, look, I got 3 to 5 years. I've done enough. My legacy is already cemented. I don't need to, I do what I want. It's like, no. I understand, once again, public negotiation, but no, you got to fight the fights. You got to fight the fights, or people's eyes are going to start to wander. And the good thing for Canelo is dudes out here, especially American fighters, they just haven't been. Look, if the girl you're with and she's the dime and she's acting up, right? You'll tend to stay with her if there are other dimes in the picture. Like if you live in a small town where all these girls are like 4s, 3s, and you got the dime, you put up with the foolishness, right? But if another dime walks through the door and another one, or even if it's an 8 or 9 and they're acting correct, you say, I'm going to go over here. That's where Canelo needs to be careful. That's where Canelo needs to be careful. It's like you're in that territory now where you need to start being careful. Benavidez is out there putting duck shirts. He's stealing. He's stealing our guy Looney Tune Boxing's art and passing it off of as his own and selling it for like $60 as a shirt. Hideous shirts, by the way. Hideous shirt. Who would buy those shirts? Hideous shirts from a hideous team. Um, but if Benavidez gets his marketing correct and he stops doing this thing where he's hedging his bets and acting like he wants to campaign at 175 when we know he doesn't, and he's doing this thing where instead of being um, precise about what he wants and where he wants to campaign and running at 168 and mowing guys down like Morrell Jr. And D-Style doesn't feel like he has to fight these fights. Complete disagreement. Look, dude, things aren't always going to go your way. I'm here and I'm saying Benavidez deserves the Canelo fight, and that's what I want to see. But at the same time, if you don't get it, dude, what are you going to do? Are you going to whine about it? And I completely get that you shame Canelo. You have the right to do that. Do the duck shirts, say Canelo's ducking me, but at the same time, you still have to put in the work. That doesn't excuse you from putting in the work. And it's the thing that rubs me the wrong way about American boxing fans and young American fighters is they feel like if things don't go their way, oh my God, what am I going to do? He just doesn't want to fight me and I can't do that. Well, how about you just fight? Fight. And fight the next guy up. He doesn't have to do that because, why doesn't Canelo? I don't know why Canelo doesn't just fight him, but guess what? He's not. So what are you going to do? What are we going to do? It's just, I guess it's a different upbringing because if I whined for more than 15 minutes, I had strong women in my life. My mom just wasn't going to put up with it. What are you going to do? Go out and do something. If I whine for longer than 10, 15 minutes and my wife is the same way, what are you sitting here whining about? Are you a grown man? Are you a grown man? My wife doesn't put up with it. If I whine about something for 10, it doesn't matter what it is, if it's extreme or if it's little. It's like, get out and do something. What are you doing? You're a grown man. You're 43 years old. Why are you sitting here in your room whining? What is this? And that's how I feel about these fights. Stop babying them. Yes, Benavidez deserves a Canelo fight, but what are we going to do? All right, he's not getting it. Now what? What are you going to do? You're going to stay at 168 and get your interim belt there, or you're going to go the 175 interim route? Do something. You go to call out the winner of Bivol Benavidez. If not, stay at 168. How about you just fight the next guy up? Fight Morrell Jr. But his fans, his temporary fans, going to be, why are you calling for him to fight Morrell Jr.? Are you scared? I'm not scared of anything. I don't care if he wins the fight or not, beats Canelo or not. This dude is so mid to me. And that's what's frustrating to me is, can we just get on with this? Because this dude is so mid. There's nothing special there. Besides a tough style at 168. Like, that's it. The dude weighs 200 pounds and he's a pressure fighter. That's it. That's his aura. There's nothing else special there, fellas. Look at the combination punches he's throwing. That's it. Where'd they go in the second half of the fight against Vodzik? Where were they? Where were these special combination punches? Because I saw his mouth wide open. I saw this dude sloppy, and I saw a dude who was washed up in front of him who couldn't take advantage of it. That's it. You talking down about him. What if Canelo loses to him then? I already said it's still a threat because of the stylistic matchup. I don't know what else to say, man. Like, the whole thing is frustrating me. Both teams look bad in that situation, but I'm not going to sit here and act like Benavidez is some, I don't know, man. Fight Morrell Jr. I don't. Whatever. But the dude's sitting there, he's making like 50,000 pay-per-view buys, and then he's fighting on an undercard. And I'm supposed to be impressed with this whole thing. Why? If he is this monster, it shouldn't matter. Like, all right, take it, man. Take it. Canelo's not fighting you, he's ducking you. All right, you got that. Got it. Take it. You got it. And you should be able to dance and crip walk with all that all you want, because at the end of the day, Canelo's not fighting you, and it's perceived that the A side is responsible for that. Fair enough. Take it. But all right, what now? What now? What are we gonna do? If you're this monster, all right, take on the next opponent. Take him on. Here's another option. Shout out to Nando Yamas. Jaime Munguia has more power than B. Here's another option. How about fight Jaime Munguia at 168? About do that one. Then we're going to hear Jaime Munguia needs to cross the street, all this stuff, right? Fight Jaime Munguia. Do that. That's acceptable. Continue to politic, continue to run a campaign at 168 in which each fight, if you do it correctly, I'm just trying to offer advice for his horrible PR team. It's just the worst. This is one of the worst PR teams I've ever seen. Good Lord. This is short bus stuff that the Benavidez team, man, it's just awful stuff, awful marketing. And the sad part about this is he could be an action star, and he could be a star on his own without Canelo by now. But they've wasted so much time. But just a thought. How about you campaign and politic at 168? It's harder to do that if you're hedging your bet. You're saying 175, 160. No, stay at 168. Throw WBC under the bus. Look, dude, strip him. Strip him. Say that stuff. Say, why don't y'all rank me higher than Canelo, since Canelo's not fighting me? He's fighting other guys in other weight classes, whatever. Go on that campaign. Say Canelo's ducking you. And then the other part of it that I was trying to tell D-Style, and he doesn't agree on, is you still have to do the work. You still have to fight the fights. And Vodzik is not it. Vodzik's not it. When I heard Benavidez Vodzik, my initial reaction was, oh, Eddie Reynoso fighter. Oh, okay. He just doesn't want to go down to 168 quick, and then we're just going to do the Canelo fight next. But that's not what it was. All right, so why are you fighting Vodzik then? What is that? Mow down everybody at 168. Continue to call Canelo out, much like Achilles calling out Hector at the gate. And he has to come down and open that gate, or he's going to look bad, right? But you still have to fight the fights. What they're accusing Canelo of doing to Benavidez is what we can accuse Benavidez of doing to Morrell. Morrell Jr. is sending scathing emails. He's saying, I was going to go to 175 to chase Benavidez. Morrell Jr. is not chasing Canelo. He's chasing Benavidez. So if we want to play this game, then Benavidez is ducking Morrell Jr. How's that? So fight the fights is all I'm saying. Stop whining. For the love of God, can these American fighters stop whining? Good Lord. On that note, have a fun weekend of boxing. Good luck to y'all with y'all's bets. Peace. God bless.